Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the No Fatwas Given podcast, episode 11 now, right? Alhamdulillah.
11? Wow.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. I am Saad, your host, and these are my co-hosts, Suhaib and Fahad. All right. A lot's happened over the past week, almost exactly a week-ish ago now. We're started off with the two attacks, which are apparently unlinked, but there was that one apparently Muslim person who took his truck in New Orleans and he drove down a lane to Christmas celebrations. I think 14 people
That
died.
was the second
some
attack,
30 were
right? The
injured.
first one was the one in
They happened simultaneously almost, which is why people thought they might be linked. The other attack was
Vegas.
Vegas, where some army sergeant, some like Caucasian dude, he rented the cyber truck, parked it outside the Trump International Hotel in Vegas, like right outside the front of it, set up a bomb. I guess he was sitting in the car at the time as well, and it exploded. The police say he shot himself before the bomb exploded, and that was that. They're calling the New Orleans attack a terrorist attack because a man linked himself to ISIS and said he was motivated by ISIS or something like that. And then the other individual they're calling, apparently the guy said he wanted to do a wake-up call to America or something like that.
I just have to say, I think, generally speaking, I think Americans, and we are more aware of the nonsense, the news media, the lies, right? The lies of the news media, the legacy media, as Elon likes to call it. Like, we should be wary of that. When everybody is aligned on the motives, the reason, who's behind it, we should be extremely skeptical, right? Just the idea that this guy is flying a gigantic ISIS flag in the one in the New Orleans attack, has a manifesto, that is associated with Al-Qaeda or ISIS or whatever, right? Has an open Quran apparently in his home with the chapter open to like some verse about martyrdom. It looks so staged that we should just believe it's staged, right? There is no reason to believe legacy media at this point, right? And I am still surprised by why us Americans, we still believe in this nonsense.
But there's this dilemma because that is often, I would say the modern day that has changed a little bit, but it's often the only official news source you get, right? So now the official statement is, interesting enough though, I should mention, when the attack first happened, the New Orleans one, the FBI said it's not motivated by terrorism. And everyone's like, but there was an ISIS flag in the back. And then later on, they said, no, it was 100% motivated by terrorism once they found his links to ISIS and whatnot. But the problem is this, like I said, you only get one official narrative. And if the entire mainstream media, legacy media, gives you one narrative, meaning the FBI, the police, whoever is conducting this investigation, so officially you only get one thing. It's not like the bystanders. We only have a couple pictures, whoever was around it, who could see things. There's some people, snapshots of the FBI, whoever looking at the flag, like displayed out on the ground and wherever the attack took place. And obviously people saw the gunfight take place between the police and the person or whatever. So that's all the bystander evidence we have, right? And so we are in this between a rock and a hard place where there's the official narrative, which, yeah, you don't take a hook, line, and sinker. You can't just trust it 100%, but at the same time, there's not enough info in the public. Unlike other things. When you're talking about a full-scale war, whether it's Ukraine or Gaza or whatever, there's enough people on the ground, there's enough news coming over months and months and months where you're like, okay, clearly the picture we're getting from the mainstream media is false. And we can just look at Twitter and what people are posting on Instagram or whatever and get much closer to the truth. But that's harder in an incident like this where it's a single attack and then they quickly came and it's all enclosed, taped off. And now you either take the mainstream media or you speculate. So what do you do?
So I would say with the advent of internet and all this amazing sleuths out there, private investigators on the internet, we don't have to take their word completely for it, right? Even in Epstein's case, the what was presented to the people was very few details compared to what the people themselves found, right? Same thing with the Shamsuddin guy, right? They start digging into his past. He became Muslim, recently? Very recently, apparently. He declared himself Muslim, I think people say a year or less than a year ago. And now he's labeled Muslim, right? As if like it took a year and now he's completely indoctrinated in Islam and the first thing he decided to do was go kill himself and commit a terrorist attack, which is absolute nonsense. And it basically reads like a really bad fiction, right? And then you look at these people, these investigators on the internet who are not buying mainstream news, and they're like, hey, let's look at this guy's background. They're two linked by they're both attackers, the New Orleans guy and the one in Vegas. They both were from the same Army Corps, the Green Beret, in some kind of fort.
Yeah, apparently they fought in the same fort in Afghanistan or something.
In Afghanistan, same exact place. These two guys are linked. That's where they trained. So they're like, hey, you know what? Instead of saying that something a problem with Islam, what's happening at this military fort or camp that's producing people like this? I think there was a third guy too associated with this. I forgot who the third guy was. But they're all three associated with this one camp. And they all turn out to be psychos or whatever, committing these terrorist acts. So that's one thing. The other thing was they found out that his name is not Shamsuddin. It is not. Again, this is a very recent development after he became Muslim. But his name was, he had many actually pseudonyms. Shams was one of them, and then Eli was one of them. And if you really look, Shams and Eli, they're not very Muslim sounding, right? Yeah. Eli, you could say, is a Christian, and the way they actually pronounce Shams is like almost Jewish. We don't know his background. We don't know what he believed in before. Likely, what formulated his actual beliefs is everything that came before his supposed conversion to Islam, right? He was radicalized way before that. So whatever he was, whoever he was serving, that's what radicalized him, not his last year.
It's really sus. Like you said right in the beginning, is like, you know, the Quran is open in his house, so this perfect chapter. Right before he went out, he posted some ISIS sympathetic post or something like that. And then, by the way, the flag wasn't actually fluttering. So he did have a flagpole attached to the back of the truck, but it wasn't actually waving the flag. Like there's actually it's all caught on like some kind of street cam where you can see he was kind of stuck in traffic. It's like Christmas traffic or whatever, and he kind of goes really slowly. He passes by a police car, and then as soon as he passes by the police car, he turns onto the road and just floors it. And you can see all that happen. There's no flag waving in the back at all. And so whatever flag they found, it wasn't waving or fluttering in the back. Rather, I think it was just like stored in the car.
I thought some pictures showed an ISIS flag or some kind of flag attached to the back of his truck.
No, they showed like something was covered. So in all the pictures they show of it, there's a jacket or something that's covering the flagpole as if it was previously there. Someone just hung their jacket on there. I'm not sure what, but there's some random gray jacket hanging off the flagpole from his car that we have the pictures from Twitter and whatnot. But as far as we can tell, look, it just seems... Can someone potentially just suddenly become Muslim, become radicalized overnight and do this attack? I guess, but it's pretty far-fetched.
But again, this is mainstream media. By this point, why would anybody trust them? Right? Do you trust them?
Look, the problem is the people who are against Islam, who are anti-Muslim, and there's unfortunately a lot of them. There's
the media.
Increasing amounts of them. They're jumping on any opportunity to basically smear us and to make us look bad. And whether that's in the lens of saying, oh, we have too much immigration, quote unquote, we have too many Muslims, or look at these Muslims, they're doing terrorist attacks, or this guy who's not even Muslim, who said he was atheist, who rammed into a bunch of people, oh, he was a closet Muslim and he's doing taqiyya.
The guy in Germany.
The guy in Germany.
Huge stretch. So they're pulling out all the stops, chomping at the bit to basically label us as terrorists, as people who do not belong in this country, who cannot assimilate, who are evil, just so that they can ratchet up the Islamophobic rhetoric.
Before we get to the Islamophobia, because that covers everything that's happening on Twitter and X right now, but just to go on this point one more time, the other thing people pointed out, for this case specifically, Shamsuddin in particular, was that it's so surprising that whenever somebody self-declares that I'm from ISIS, that should be super skeptical, right? These self-proclamations of which group they're supporting, it's absolute nonsense, right? We should be highly skeptical of that. Why is that? Why is the media pushing this narrative? And then the second thing is, when have you seen, within 48 hours, a news reporter going through the guy's entire apartment? Where was a search? Like, usually searches take much longer than 48 hours. Now she's going through, she's like rummaging through his stuff and videotaping everything. This is ridiculous. Essentially, it's like some guy committed an act. Within a short period of time, they know everything about that is to be known. No further investigation required. We know his motive. We know his intention. We know whose group he was from, what he was. We know everything.
I mean, I could put my tinfoil hat on for a moment, and it seems like, okay, if we're gonna say that this was planted, some false flag attack or whatever, right? it's like, that begs the question why, right? And it feels like, a lot of the focus is on Syria and Gaza and the
Israel.
Muslim plight, Israel, right? In a negative light, I would say, right? Especially in social media. And it's like, now let's bring radical Islam back into the light. Radical terrorism from radical Islam, these radicalized Muslims going around, doing what they do best, killing the infidels, right? Let's put them back in the limelight. Let's take away that attention from the Middle East and other things that are happening there because that's bad press. Well, let's bring it back to what really matters.
Frankly speaking,
radical, terrorism.
Anti-Israel, anti-Semitism, that was always on the rise, right? It was severely on the rise. You saw it all over social media, especially on X. People questioning pretty much everything that was happening.
Anti-Zionist sentiment, I would say. It wasn't anti-Semitism, because that's what they like you to believe. Anti-Zionist sentiment.
The Muslims are anti-Zionist. The rest of the people, even I have to say, it's very anti-Semitic, right?
Sam Harris admits it too. Remember that conversation between him and Ben Shapiro? He's like, well, the real anti-Semites, if you take away the Muslims, are actually those on the right, the white people.
Yeah, they are. So, no doubt, I see it for myself, right? On X. I'm not going to hide it. The Muslim posts, I guarantee you won't find anti-Semitism there. They're basically like against Israel, right? But 100% anti-Semitism on the rise. Every single little thing, they're like looking at who's behind it. If they see a Jewish-sounding name, they blame everything on them. It's on the rise. So the media, as we know, is largely controlled by a single group. They're feeling the heat of this. They need to control the narrative. The narrative is going out on social media, which they don't control. They just can't control to that level. So this seems like a very much needed false flag attack to divert it back to a group that both the right and everybody else can hate together.
But the thing is, the blame we get from the right now is framed in the sense that we are a protected class. You see the left, they don't want to bring out, they don't want to make the Muslims look bad, they want to talk about Islamophobia. Well, to be fair, Kamala Harris did pass this thing about Islamophobia, but that was just to try to appease us because of Gaza.
It was a token.
But the rhetoric's the same. If you look at the UK right now, there's a lot about Tommy Robinson and how he should be freed. Elon Musk using his gigantic megaphone, which is Twitter or X. He's talking about freeing Tommy Robinson. And he shared an interview of Tommy Robinson with Visegrad, which is another Islamophobic outlet. And he just talks about his ideas very openly. He's like, I'm the only guy who talks about the real problem. I grew up in a city where there was one mosque and now there's 45. That's the problem, okay? We have Muslims that are basically committing crimes. There's 5% of Muslim men in the UK, but they're responsible for 90% of the gang rape crime. And
he talks about Muslims in the UK the way Trump talks about Mexicans in America.
It's the same thing, and they're just using every single thing they can get to malign us and make us look bad. But they frame it such that the government's actually protecting these people. Or they're not, actually. They're potentially causing false flags to make us look even worse and bring back the idea that we are terrorists.
Why did this start again, this whole grooming conversation? Because this grooming conversation has been going on for a very long time. If you listen to anything about Mohammed Hijab and Tommy Robinson for the last year or so, this grooming gangs conversation in the UK is not new news. But I think recently some Muslim leader or something was caught with some issue in UK. And so this thing is surging again. And,
what do you mean by grooming?
Basically, what they say, there's grooming gangs, and they mainly single out Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs. Essentially, they target young girls, and they like to point out white British girls, and they essentially coerce them, and essentially they have either sexual relationships or something some kind of misconduct with them. It's all evil, but that's essentially what they accused. That's what I think grooming gangs is. Essentially make somebody, it's almost like saying, Macron was groomed by his, what was the thing?
His wife or whatever.
Yeah, his wife, because his wife used to be a teacher of his, and slowly but surely get them used to your presence or whatever, and then commit a sexual act with them, right? So that's the idea of these gangs. But they're far more nefarious, right? They're actually involved in major crime organization, major criminal activity. It's not like a one-off person. It's like a full organizations that are essentially have a funnel of women, and then they're obviously committing sexual acts with them. That's the idea. The thing is, I have no doubt that there are Muslims in UK involved in this, and I have no doubt that could even be Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean,
That's fine. But the thing is, every single time, if a guy looks Muslim or he has a Muslim background, you label Muslim. Islam has absolutely nothing to do with this, right? If a grooming gang was a Muslim problem, you would have it in Dubai. You would have it in Dubai. You would have it in Indonesia. You would have it in Egypt. You would have it in Pakistan. You would have it in India. Even in India is majority Hindu, but there's a large portion of Muslims that live in India. You would have it, Morocco, all the North
majority
African
countries, yeah.
Muslim majority countries. You don't have that issue, but why suddenly UK has that issue and nowhere else, right? Why is it a Muslim problem? It makes absolutely no sense.
These problems do exist in these countries, not that. But the bigger reality is, if you look at the larger subset of the population, there's a lot more white grooming gangs than there are Pakistani Muslim-made grooming gangs, and that just has to do with the amount of population, right? There's a lot more white people out there, and there's a lot more grooming gangs from
but it's
that.
not a percentage. It's like if Pakistanis are 5% of the UK population and they're like 30% of the gangs, right? That's the issue. I have no idea what the stats are, but I'm saying that's what I've heard.
That is their argument.
Because these are similar things to what people say about the black people in America, right? A disproportionate amount of crime is done by young black men versus, let's say, young white men or Asians.
But that's the same is not true in the U.S. though, right? The same Pakistani Muslims, you don't hear they're having grooming gangs here. And
we're considered a model minority here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're one of the highest earning minorities in the U.S. Indians, and then there's like a couple of others, and then there's Pakistanis, right? And so it has to do more with socioeconomic status than anything else.
We talked about this last time. Yeah.
So the thing is, one of the guys who posted, I forgot who was posted on X, but they were comparing the Muslim and then the white grooming gang population. I think like white was like 90% versus 10%. Now, I don't know the percentage of Muslims in the UK. 10% might be a lot.
No,
it might be like
5 to
so
7.
it's
7%.
more than representative, but they were only comparing white to Muslim. They're not comparing anybody else. But either way, I'm not even denying the fact that it might be a little high or whatever it is, right? But you're ignoring 90% of the problem and focusing, and then the entire rhetoric is immigration is a problem. Is these migrants who are coming and sexually grooming our white British girls. But if you really wanted to protect white British girls, the majority of white British girls who are getting groomed, you have to target way more than the Pakistani Muslim population that are grooming. 90% of it's from outside of that population. 90% is from the British people themselves who are grooming and sexually abusing their own people, their own white British girls. If you want to protect the majority, if that is the focus, if the focus is to protect the majority of them, you're leaving out 90% of the grooming gangs, right? Just to spin a narrative that this is some kind of Muslim issue. Which again, if anybody with even 2 cents actually thinks about it, with nearly 2 billion Muslims in the world, this problem is not even endemic anywhere else in the world, to this degree.
My main concern is that this problem of is anti-Muslim hate is only going to grow.
Oh.
And it's bad in the UK from what we're hearing, but it's spreading to the US. It was already there in the US, but it's going to get a lot worse, right? In Europe, there's a lot more far-right governments that have been coming into power, lots of populism, anti-immigrant sentiment, which can easily be translated into anti-Muslim sentiment very easily. And now you have Elon. Look, I like Elon. I'm just going to be honest about it. He's done some great stuff. He's a very productive guy, clearly. He's launching rockets. He's trying to get to Mars. He has electric cars, Neuralink, a bunch of cool things. But unfortunately, he's turned over to the dark side. It's happening. It started with going to Netanyahu and going and seeing the hoax about, 40 beheaded babies, and then peddling that stuff. And now is going very clearly Islamophobic, where he's sharing these interviews of Tommy Robinson, who is a clear-cut Islamophobe, right? It's just sad for me to see that. And Twitter, he has the biggest megaphone in the world, and he's going anti-Muslim.
The funny thing
which means the U.S. has got, the narrative is going towards more and more anti-Muslim.
I would say he's a coward, though. He's clearly a coward because all he does is retweets Islamophobic things, but he will never address the issue head on himself. He'll never actually formulate his own tweet that is Islamophobic or just talking about a point himself. He'll just retweet. He'll retweet Tommy Robinson. He'll tweet a bunch of that one Indonesian guy. What is Ian Chung? What's his name?
Oh, Ian Cheong is a
Miles
Malaysian. or
some
something.
Malaysian, absolute Islamophobe. He'll retweet him and say, "Wow," right?
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting.
Wow.
Wow.
This has got to stop or
Yeah,
something.
that's
yeah.
all he does. He
Even
just-
that interview of Tommy Robinson, he said, "What do you think about this video?"
That's it. He will never ever address it directly, which I think is a coward because this Islamophobia thing started actually before even he went to the wall in Jerusalem. He kissed the wall and he went to Israel or anything like that. He was like this from the beginning. His whole thing about the population crisis only is concerned with the white population. He's actually not really concerned with everybody else. He's only concerned with the European white population, the American white population. That is what he's concerned with. He's not concerned with the fact that Mexicans have a lot of babies, that they're good. No. He's purely concerned with the white population, right? And in that sense, immigration of these Muslims who, mashallah, we reproduce quite a bit. It's a good thing. This scares him. This scares him a lot. And he has naturally become Islamophobic way before this. He was, however, anti-Israel too. Like about 2 years ago, after he bought X, I think he posted something critical of Israel or the media, and he said that a select group of people control it. And he was,
Yeah.
and it was true because I always viewed Elon Musk as a truth seeker. He wanted freedom of speech on his platform, truth seeker. He wanted it open, and so far he has kept X to a degree open. But ever since that happened, he got the severe backlash. I think they completely stopped advertising on his platform. He kind of held on as much as he could. He's like, I'll struggle through this. We'll keep it alive. But as soon as the Israel-Palestine war started and they flew him over, he was kind of just bought.
Done.
He was done.
Pretty after that, his tune changed.
His two chains.
completely, yeah.
I suddenly, even though I'm not subscribed to any of these Israeli accounts, I got a lot of Israeli posts and stuff suddenly like coming in.
And
when
on
I
Twitter,
didn't need
a
it.
lot of the big Muslim accounts, anyone who's kind of anti-Zionist, has been going pro-Gaza. They're being unchecked. Their check marks being removed. They're being demonetized. This happened to several Muslims who recently posted this. Also happened to the Jake Shields guy.
Jake Shields guy, the MMA guy, yeah.
But what do you think his incentive is? You said bought, but you can't really buy him. He's the richest guy in the world.
But can you? But here's the thing. Imagine you spent $50 billion buying a company, and then someone's literally going to put it into the ground. That's enough incentive to be like, look, I don't want to lose. Like, it doesn't matter how rich you are, but you don't want to lose $50 billion. And if all it takes is going and being like, you know what? Yeah, give the hostages back. I'm going to wear this chain and sell all the hostages.
His life is a testament to him not really caring about money. Okay, like he had a ton of money. He sold PayPal. He had lots of money. He spent everything and lived on.
But maybe he wasn't bought, but he was propagandized somehow.
I
The
think-
man's
I
mind.
think-
They
was
might have
shifted.
something on him.
No, I think the
could
guy. You said he's a truth seeker. I think he genuinely ascribes to this idea that he belongs to the general Western heritage. And it goes all the way back to the Greco-Roman heritage.
Like Jordan Peterson.
And Crusades and that kind of stuff. And that we were always against the Muslims and the Ottomans and we don't want that power to ever come back. And the memory of, Salahuddin Ayyubi reconquering Jerusalem, all those things are still fresh. It still is, the collective West has that memory, right? That's another reason why they're going to Syria right now and making sure, I know you have a lot of problems right now, but let me ask you the most important question in our minds. Will you allow alcohol in Syria?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Like, why would you ask that question right
There's
now?
much bigger problems, yeah.
These are way bigger problems, right? And Jelani just says, hey, well, we'll figure it out. We'll have a council and they'll figure it out.
The thing is, Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, they all prescribe to this. The idea is that the white people were being attacked. And it's true. I completely acknowledge that. It is ridiculous in this country, the level of anti-white that exists, right? With the entire woke leftists completely removing them, replacing their historically white characters, even if they're fiction, with like people of color, right? And it's absolute nonsense.
I actually do think there's reverse racism at this point.
It is reverse racism.
I mean, like, it hurts to be white in this country now.
Yeah, so what has happened
It's
is
ridiculous.
they are trying to find a tradition to hold on to, because they pretty much abandoned Christianity as a truth.
So they found racism.
No. So what they didn't find racism. So even like Sean Strickland, for instance, right? Sean Strickland keeps saying we have a Christian values, Christian beliefs, but he admits he's not Christian. He's like, I'm agnostic at best. He's leaning toward atheism, agnostic at best, but he believes that white culture is the way it is because of Christian values.
Same.
Jordan Peterson has the same thing, right? Jordan Peterson, if you look into his ideology, he's nowhere near a Christian. He actually believes that these are myths, these are founding myths, and they have truth in the sense that these myths formed who they are today. That's why they're true. But they're not literally true.
Basically, the parables and stories of the Bible are mythology, but it's good mythology because the moral derived from these stories is beneficial and has brought mankind to where it is today.
Not mankind.
Yeah.
The white
Western
people,
culture
the white nation, the Western culture, this is their mythology.
And I don't know if it's white per se. I'm not going to say it because I don't think it's racist. I don't think someone like Jordan Peterson is like white racist, in my opinion. But I think he is like... Western. Like Western, I don't know why they keep calling it Judeo-Christian values. It has nothing to do with Judaism at all, literally. But we'll call it Christian values of the West. And he thinks it's superior. There is something there, and he finds it is superior to all the other ideology of the world.
Well, talking about superiority, it's if they don't acknowledge God anyways, they just want to hold on to their culture and their tradition. And they want to go back to tradition. That's why a lot of these revivalist, Christian, traditionalist white people a lot of times have crusaders in their banners. It was because the last time they stood up strongly in their minds for their ideals and they didn't sway towards wokeism, which to them is destroying white culture. And so like, what was there before wokeism and feminism and all this stuff? Well, it was our hardcore Christian values.
I think these people basically have a problem with the constitutions they themselves wrote. They're bound by them, which basically means if there's a demographic change and there's more Muslims now in America, let's say we become 70% in 2300 or whatever, right? Now America is a Muslim country. By the Constitution, that's perfectly legitimate. Everything's cool, right? The question is, what does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be an Englishman, right? And so having that identity crisis is very significant. It's a very significant problem. It's Tommy Robinson too. He couldn't say with a straight face that he's Christian, but he says, the Bible built this country and things like that. It's very generic things. And you ask him, like, what does it really mean to be an Englishman? And essentially, what it boils down is to being
white.
Is being white. And it just comes down...
And a lineage. Like, my forefathers were white, I'm white. There we go. Right?
Because they actually don't believe in Christianity, which means... Because if they truly were Christians, then Christianity is not limited to just Western white people, right? Africans would be Christians. Indonesians could be Christians. They should be part of the same family. And you should be just as happy as seeing a bunch of Indonesian or African or Chinese Christians as you are white Christians.
This is actually where the racism is the easiest to see. If you look at Palestinian Christians, they're getting bombed the crap out of them just as much as the Muslim Palestinians, but they could care less about them.
Because they don't care about Palestinian spirit.
They don't. They care about the white Christians. Even amongst the Israeli Jews, they care about the European Jews. They could care less about Yemeni Jews and other Jews. There is this inherent racism which all goes back to being white. And so when you talk about white supremacy being on blast, I mean, there's elements of that, right? And so there's a reason why we have people like Ta-Nehisi Coates being extremely popular on the left, who wrote the essay for the case of reparations in the Atlantic back in the day. And right now his current book called The Message, I'm reading it these days, is an amazing book. And he goes in depth deconstructing his whole idea of how the blacks were oppressed by the whites. And then when he goes to Palestine for a visit, for a literary thing, somebody invited him there, he first goes to the Holocaust Museum there in Israel. And he sees the whole idea of how we had the Jewish people who were oppressed, they went under a Holocaust, they died. And then you have this whole redemption arc where now they built their own state. the conquered are now the conquerors, and now they have self-rule. It's a beautiful story. But then he visits Palestine and like the actual cities there, and he sees apartheid live. So we have a different set of rules for these people. They can't vote. They have a different set of laws. They can't go here. And soldiers are literally asking him, hey, what's your religion? And he says, I don't have one. They'll, what's your father's religion? Well, he didn't have a religion either. Fine. What were your grandparents' religion? Oh, they were Christian. Okay. And he says, I know, if I said they were Muslim, I wouldn't be allowed to go further. And he makes this clear comparison. He says, look, I recognize this stuff. I've written about this stuff. It's the same ideology of supremacy, of saying that one race is beneath the other one. And this whole trend, it's present in the US, it's present over there. And that's the same reason why America backs Israel. Because ultimately, the US sees itself in Israel. In terms of its founding myth.
I have a problem with painting with too broad a brush because I'm saying, because this is my interaction with Americans, right? As patients or as colleagues, other students, whatever, right? Even, I've met people who clearly, who are very right-leaning, they clearly prefer white over non-white or whatever it is. But I don't think it's out of... Let's say it's not blatant racism. It may appear racist. It'll end up being racist, meaning they might even prefer white people for blah, 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 whatever the reasons are, right? But it's because, it's not always because, these colored folk, it doesn't matter what color they are, foreign folk, let's call them, they bring their problems with them, right? And so if I stick to my white group, when it's familiar, it's like that's why there's a Chinatown in every town. That's why often brown Indian people get married to Indians, Pakistanis marry Pakistanis, and Italians end up still marrying Italians. Yeah, there's a lot of melting pot that's happening in America now, but still, imagine, despite the melting pottedness of this country, people still marry their own. They're marrying another Asian, a first-generation Asian who speaks English just like them, whose parents are also Asian. They look for this stuff. And so for me, it's like, we do this when it comes to this country as minorities. We tend to find pockets of, look, he's a Pakistani guy. Let's see who he is. I've never seen a Pakistani here. And white people, to some degree, are going to bend and do the same. Now, it's much easier for them because, 90% of the people are white, but they're going to do the same. And so now when problems come, and they come from immigrants, let's say, they see it, maybe in their own lives, whether it's the news perpetrating this, as we talked about earlier, Islamophobia, immigrant biasness, Trump saying they're all bad hombres, whatever it is, right? They see this with their own eyes and you know what? I think we were better off without all these immigrants. I mean, the idea flashes through your head. Now, it has to. And I think it's a natural thought. So I'm not going to go out and say they're all blatant racist. Some of them are. Some are time out, blatant racist. There's some clear, Elon Musk potentially.
No, I think he is a blatant racist.
Okay, honestly, I haven't read enough yet. I find most of his Twitter unhinged, so I don't follow it too hard. But I'm just saying, I'm not going to paint them all too broad a brush. Is there some underlying racism? 100%. But I think it's I often hung out with Muslims, often Pakistanis, not always, but Muslims I cater to. And people like white Christian. Even if they're not Christian now, they could be agnostic, but they're like, you know what? They find it easier to jive with the typical Christian backgrounded white dude in this country. And that makes sense. So I'm not going to say they're all racist. Is there some racism happening? Absolutely. Maybe a lot of racism even happening. I'm not saying that, but I'm not going to be like any guy who hangs out with a bunch of white dudes is automatically just white and racist. Okay, this is random, but I'm watching the Beast games. All right, me and my wife. Pretty good, worth a watch. But in it, you see
watching what?
The Beast games. It's a show that Mr. Beast has put out. It's the biggest show ever. Huge prize pool, $5 million cash prize at the end. Literally, they have the $5 million cash prize.
It's on Netflix, right?
With them. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh.
What is it about?
It's really cool, I'll tell you, but I'm going to get to this point.
Sure.
So it's basically Mr. Beast. He does what he always does. He just gives away money over competitions, right? He's done some big ones on his own YouTube channel, like the Squid Game copy and stuff. This is similar-ish. There's some Squid Game vibes here. But basically, he has 1,000 contestants. Full-on 1,000, which is a massive number, right? Even Squid Game was 5.
And they're all YouTubers, right? Or something? Like the contestants? Or
no, a lot of them are YouTubers. A lot of them just people. But I would say a lot of them are lower socioeconomic class for the most part. So people who really want that $5 million could make a huge difference in their lives. I'll be honest, for most of us, we'd invest it and it wouldn't change our lives too much. It's a privilege thing. So that's another thing. Me and my wife are watching this and we're like, we're trying to understand because they're crying every time they get out or something. They're crying and bursting in tears. And we're like, yeah, because $5 million wouldn't change my life. It just wouldn't. I
think it's more than 5 million. Sometimes it becomes like a prestige thing too.
Sure. But I mean, I don't know. But there's a lot of things there. But this is what I saw. So a lot of what he's doing in the show, the way he's eliminating people, is they're like self-sacrifice things. So he groups people up into 10, 5, 3. And then what is the next game? All right, I'm gonna lock you up. I'm gonna lock everyone. Make groups of 3. I'm gonna lock you up in a room. Only 2 of you can leave, and you have 5 hours to figure out which 2 are gonna leave. One of you, there's like a handcuff on the wall. Handcuff yourself to the wall. You self-eliminate yourself. Figure it out. You guys can do games of chance. We'll bring you guys dice, Monopoly, whatever you want to figure it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of these social experiment kind of things.
Yeah, so basically a lot of social experiment stuff. And it's very fascinating what you see in this. One thing you see is 4 particular individuals are offered $1 million each to rat out, basically to fire the entire group. They have 50 people behind each of them, something like that. These 50 people, groups of 50, each elect a champion, let's say a leader amongst them. These 4 leaders are put basically on some pedestal. And then they're offered $1 million each and they will survive. If they take the million, they'll take the million. They will continue playing the game to potentially win the 5 million. But the 50 people who elected them leader, they'll get removed from the game. All 4 of these people rejected $1 million and sided with their people. They said they elected me, they trusted me to not out them, so I'm not going to.
Which is amazing.
$1 million is insane. That is life-changing money, especially for a lot of these people. Imagine you're a guy making $20K a year.
Wait, so the guy would get $1 million
and continue
to
playing.
out all the 50 people
That elected him, yes.
and increase his chances of winning the thing as well.
Because, he eliminates 50 people, he gets to continue playing, and he pockets $1 million. He pockets $1 million and gets to continue playing for the $5 million. This is separate from the $5 million prize pool. So, but getting to the point I was trying to make, interesting, anyway, worth a watch, but is oftentimes when people were asked to select a group, or hey, you found a golden ticket, now you can take the helicopter to the next part of the games in this island, choose 5 other people. Often, guys would choose guys. Again, like chooses like. And they often chose people who jive with them, right? I would say the people you band together with tend to be more like you, right? If you're a black person, you tend to have black people around you. Or if you're a minority, you just tend to hang out with the minorities. I've seen it so many times. And yeah, most of the contestants are white naturally, of course. So it's not like, they're just choosing white people because I'm not saying they're racist, but it just hangs out with chooses more often than not.
So I would just say the entire thing, what you've said about it makes sense that the white people choose white people. This is a very Islamic concept. I just want to bring it back to Islam just to give it a quick point. Is the Prophet recognized this, right? That we created nations and tribes to recognize one another. Not to say that you're better than one another, but there are clear differences between different races and tribes. There are clear, when I come to the US, I see, it's amazing how much we focus here on disabilities. You'll see hey, this is a public facility we're making. Make sure that there's ramps. Make sure that everything is there. Make sure that the sidewalks are correct, right? It has enough space for a wheelchair. All this stuff is taken.
Every sign has Braille.
Braille on it. This is absolutely amazing, right? And we have to acknowledge this came from themselves, right? It was not imported, these ideas, right? Every single people have something worth admiring about. It is 100% true that Indians are very studious, right? Hardworking. The Chinese people, they're extremely industrious. They can copy anything, and they're very, very good at what they do. Everybody has talents, right? Some people more artistic and other things like that. And we have different cuisines, right? The steaks, the U.S. steaks and their barbecues and stuff. The Korean barbecue, very different. The Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, India, just their curries and everything else. What you offer to the world, the idea is you appreciate everybody. Now, it is true that we also are highly recommended to marry amongst ourselves. Yes, we're all Muslims, but there is a benefit to me marrying somebody who is like me, who cooks food that I grew up with, that I like. However, if you see in America, you'll see many cases where Pakistanis, they just kind of grew up there. They're very isolated because a lot of the families didn't come here. So these families came to America very isolated, maybe in a community that didn't have many Muslims around them, or Pakistani Muslims for that matter. And their children kind of just grew up in the American culture. And so they found it far more comfortable marrying, let's say, a Palestinian Muslim girl or Egyptian Muslim girl or another Pakistani Muslim girl that has zero ties to Pakistan. They do not understand the culture of Pakistan at all. And they're American. They grew up on mac and cheese and that's what they feed their kids. This is what they know. This is normal for them, right? So they've adopted the US culture because they had no other culture to adopt. And that's perfectly fine. And
what makes you more American? Adopting the culture or just having the passport?
So that's the thing about America, right?
I would say America is assimilation. Actually, to cut you off really briefly, is people were talking about this. They were talking to, I think it was Muslim Lantern, actually. Someone was talking to him. He came on the Dean show, and he was talking about, what he's noticed in America and what he's noticed in the UK. Muslims in general, just the population here, population there when it comes to foreigners. He's like, foreigners in the UK, no matter who they are, whether they're Muslim, Pakistani, Egyptian, whatever, wherever they come from, whatever foreigners, Chinese, they tend to maintain their own culture. They maintain their own culture. They remain the way they are. I guess they go to English schools. They learn English, so it's a common language, right? That's not a big deal. But in America, there's a strong push for assimilation. Very strong push for assimilation. And so think, how quickly can we turn this Asian into an Asian American? American Asian first, in fact. Let's put American first. American Asian. American Muslim. The American identity should be first and foremost. They should be assimilated into our culture. They should be holding Saturday barbecues, watching football, right? How quickly can we get them into that culture? And it's a goal. It's literally a goal for, I would say, foreigners who come to America.
But I think the fact that Muslims have assimilated more in the US versus the UK is actually our strength. Because we are less prone to attacks the way I think Muslims in the UK are currently facing. You get these cliques and these ghettos of people or Muslims that are all in this little town or they're doing crime or whatever, which is what's happening in the UK. Whereas in the US, because you've assimilated a little bit more and perhaps we're able to interact more with our neighbors because we don't necessarily all live in Muslim ghettos. Firstly, there's not a lot of us here anyways, relative to the UK.
Well, it's because of the size of the US. We are spread across the US.
I mean, it's just raw percentage. The UK has like 7%. We're over here. We're barely 1% or something, right? So it's just percentage-wise. It's large. It's a much larger place, and so we don't have any strong concentration. So we end up having to assimilate because we don't have much of a choice. We have neighbors. You don't have like 15 Muslim neighbors. You just have English-speaking, white neighbors, black neighbors, whatever. You can assimilate with them, and so ultimately it ends up becoming a strength for us, or a way. It becomes harder for people to alienate us. Having said that, we still get alienated a lot. We are definitely not any kind of protected minority by any stretch. But that's what Tommy Robinson in the UK will make you believe. He'll say, oh, if you talk against the Muslims or you talk against Islam, they will cancel you. You will become depersoned, which is actually what happens if you speak against Zionism.
But that's a common thing I've been hearing. PBD speaks about this clearly. Candace has also said something similar, where they're saying, and to a small degree, I agree with them in this sense. So they say that it's actually Christianity that's under the greatest attack. Because there is, you say something against Islam, you're labeled Islamophobic. You say something against, Judaism, you're labeled anti-Semitic. Full stop period, right? And obviously anti-Semitism, the pushback for that is much stronger. But you can make fun of Christianity, nothing happens to you. From that standpoint, I get it. But at the same time, it's not like, you never heard of radical Christianity terrorism, right?
Exactly.
Radical Christians, radical. No, it's like, oh, that was a Christian dude who did this because even if he said, God's name before, he blew himself up or blew up a car or whatever.
Because Christianity doesn't condone that. Same thing. Islam doesn't condone any random terrorist attack.
This is where I disagree with them. I don't think the media favors Islam. But yes, do some people get labeled Islamophobes? And no one ever gets labeled anti-Christian. So in that sense, I get it. But it's also because the Christians are the majority, right? You can't be a majority. It's just like white people are like, well, reverse racism can't exist because white people are the majority. I disagree. Just because Christians are the majority doesn't mean that Christianity isn't under attack. And just because white people are the majority doesn't mean that white people or certain aspects of white, whatever, culture, personality, whatever, whiteness isn't being attacked.
I would say.
You see what I'm trying to say?
I would say Reddit's a great case. Reddit's a bunch of white people, and Christianity is extremely under attack on Reddit.
Where? Sorry?
Reddit.
Okay.
It's extremely under attack, right? The entire left loves to attack Christianity, right? Europe will look at the U.S. and see the modesty in the U.S., which, as Muslims, we don't see it modest. But for Europeans, they look at the Puritan American modesty and they laugh at it, right? And this is very much an attack on morality that stems from Christianity, ultimately, right? The Western morality has its roots from Christianity.
I mean, the moral roots ultimately go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? These
Yes,
are
for us,
faiths.
that's our thing, right?
Yeah.
For the people here, though, they feel that this all stems from Christianity. And it is very much under attack. Every single movie, all these left movements, feminism, where it has reached now, it's all attacking core traditional Christian values.
But bring this up.
They don't protect themselves either.
This is a slightly separate topic, but it just makes me think about this, where, especially amongst Muslims, there's a lot of doom and gloom, right? Just look at the Muslim position broadly in the world. Most of the Muslim countries are third world. They're generally poor. Muslims are immigrating to first world Christian Western nations for opportunity, financial or otherwise, safety even, right? And so people see this, and so yes, the Muslim world is a little downtrodden. They're obviously not in their peaks of the past. There's no doubt about this. But I feel like there is a religious revival in general, especially in Islam. And I think what brought this about. So I was also, I would say, pessimistic not too long ago when it came to all this, right? Dajjal is around the corner, right? The end of times is upon us, which the Prophet Muhammad said, if Dajjal comes during this time, I will be the Mahdi, right? Basically. So there's no doubt that we're seeing the signs, right? The Bedouins building buildings, so on and so forth, right? There's many other signs like that, oil, whatever. But I feel like there is a revival of Islam coming. And what brought this on is as the LGBTQ agenda increased. I remember, let's say during my teens, is when the LG portion of it was just hook, line, and sinker. At this point, Hollywood had been touting it for like 20, 30, 40 years. It was widely accepted. J.K. Rowling came out and said, Dumbledore was gay. This is all just everything. I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Dumbledore was gay, right? Everything was just going on and on and on, right? And then
we actually used to read a lot of fiction back then, way back then, right? And I saw it myself, picking up new books of fiction. Every single group had one LGBT character.
Yeah.
They just slowly started.
Usually lesbian, gay.
I think, wasn't Aragon, they had like some gay dragon?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Maybe not Aragon, but there was another thing that they even introduced the animals as being like within this spectrum.
Yeah, but anyway, but the LG portion, LGB, I guess you could say, became super common, super normal, right? Then the trans thing came, and dude, my pessimism for the future of
the U.S.
of religiosity, of conservatism, of morality went just out the window. I'm like, dude, if you can accept the trans ideology, which, forget morals for a second, is just anti-logic, right? Is pure anti-logic, like it's just unacceptable. You're just not. I'm sorry. Like
logic is on the decline.
Yeah, literally. Now it's like 1 + 1 is no longer 2. And once that was the case,
well, that's your truth.
That statement boggles my mind, right?
That's not my truth.
That your truth, my truth. This stuff started coming, and my mind, when I think about it, it would go nuts. I'm like, how do I navigate this world myself? One, and as my children were growing, it became even more like it weighed very heavily on my mind. And then I would say over the past year or two, there was a swing towards, I don't know, rationale, towards logic, towards going back towards
conservatism,
towards
traditionalism,
right? And you could say it like the "What Is a Woman" thing from Matt Walsh, right? That was the most watched movie in 2023 or 2020, whatever it was that year, right? And
the idea of protecting your children.
Yeah, the swing. Even J.K. Rowling's like, look, you've gone too far, and she was called a TERF or whatever, trans exclusionary radical feminist, whatever it was, right?
Whoa, yeah,
TERF. But even she's like, look, this makes no sense. Now you've been taken away from feminists. Feminists are like, by the way, if you accept trans, so if Donald Trump suddenly says in his first term, he's like on his last day, he's like, you know what, I'm a woman today. He becomes the first female president, right? It doesn't work that way. And so, but when I saw the swing, this pushback, and once people were like, dude, trans makes no sense. Whether it's Joe Rogan, pretty much any athlete out there is like, dude, this is a load of baloney, right? once a pushback against a trans thing happened, there was also simultaneous because it came from religious values. You can't say no to these things unless you have a religious basis. And so I think Christianity swung back.
Well,
Islam swung back.
Islam was at the forefront of saying no to this.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, in PBD, and people like Candace recognize this, in PBD said, we need to come together because the Muslims are stronger in this than the Christians even are. Pushing back against, hey, we don't want these ideologies taught in our schools to our children, right? And this brought me a lot of hope for the world. That logic isn't dead, morality isn't dead, religion isn't dead in the modern world, in the Western world, in America, where I live. And I don't know. It's very hopeful, and I still see hope. I still see this light.
No, that's why to me, the disappointment, like the idea of fake news, it started as a joke, but it really caught on. People are like, hey, this news is a lot of times fake. A lot of times represented in a very twisted manner that is supposed to get you to a certain conclusion, which is completely false. Absolute false. I think even Elon Musk was, he tweeted out some TED Talk by some lady who was straight up talking about, she was a Wikipedia, something like foundation, somebody in charge of Wikipedia, and she was saying that, you know what, truth is something that we shouldn't be too concerned about. And this is from somebody from that is running Wikipedia. What do you mean truth is something that we shouldn't be concerned? That is all we should be concerned about, right? So I think this idea of fake news, my truth, all suddenly flipped the entire conversation, and people got out of that just going down the path, consuming everything, whatever the media tells us, and now they're breaking away. And now that they're breaking away, they're trying to find and grasping onto, okay, what are we going to hold on to? And they're trying to find values without being religious. Mm-hmm. And
but this is the whole idea. Why are they going back to white Christianity?
Because that's all they have in their...
Even someone like you said, Sean Strickland, he's like, I'm agnostic at best. But he's like, our white Christian values. Like, those values don't even believe in technically. But the reason they're going back is like, they're seeing, let's call it wokeism, and they're like, that's bananas. That's crazy.
What are they fighting with?
So how do you go back? Well, Christianity's not the answer because I'm not even Christian. White culture was the answer, right? They're trying to take a step back. They don't know what to step back to. Yeah. But religion's the answer.
Speaking of stepping back, so again, Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think, quoted a movie that was...
Who?
Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's one of the black authors I was talking about. He quoted, in his book, he quoted a movie that was played in the White House, the first movie that was ever played in the White House. It was called Birth of a Nation, okay? And this was in like 1910s. And apparently, I haven't finished watching it, but it's a very racist movie. It shows how the South was, I think, apparently correct, or there was a lot of issues in there. But Woodrow Wilson had similar ideas. He played in the White House, big famous thing. Anyway, so I started watching this on YouTube. And this was made in the 1910s or 1911, and it was depicting the 1860s, which is when the Civil War happened, 1861 to 65, right? So it's depicting the 1860s. And if you look at the 1860s, there's a lot more modest clothing, firstly. That's striking. All the women fully covered, all the way, sleeves, all the way down to the legs, and whenever they leave the house, properly dressed. Everyone, even the men, by the way, of course, wearing hats. Everybody looks a lot more prim and proper, right? But there's a level of respect, decorum that is just foreign to me. Currently living in America, right? It seems foreign. It's a very foreign thing, right? And so to try to go back to that, I think it's just kind of impossible. I don't even think that's what they're trying to go back to. They think they want to go back to that, but they really don't. Because the level of fahash, the lack of modesty that's endemic in society right now is what they still want to keep while going back to some of those things, but they're just not congruent.
You can't have both. Yeah.
The funniest thing is it's these kind of white traditional Christian accounts. It's funny, every now and then they'll post a picture, and it's all usually like either AI generated or like some kind of like painting. It's never like real because it doesn't exist right now in the US. But they'll post these pictures. Sometimes they post pictures of the crusade, right? Elon Musk sometimes posts himself as like a warrior thing. But what they'll post sometimes is a white family. Because again, they lack family right now, right? They don't have family. So they pick a white family, but where? On a beach. Okay, so now you have a little girl, you have a little son, the father's there, nice, well-toned, sitting there on the beach, and then you have the mother taking care of the children, but the mother is dressed in a one-piece bikini. Not two-piece, because two-piece is that's, I think they could say that two-piece is a little bit too far, one-piece. But the one piece is what led to the two piece. What they don't understand is they want to go back to a point where if they did go back to that, if they magically if they were able to click a button and go back to, let's say they look at the 1960s or maybe 1950s. The 1950s is what led to the 1960s. The 1960s is what led to the 1970s. And all of that was because they started abandoning Christianity as a whole.
This happened actually early in the 1900s. I went back, how far back do you have to go before women were pretty much wearing the equivalent of a bikini?
Definitely.
Where the entire figure was shown.
Because World War,
right?
The World War changed a lot.
I would say, it's around World War One. World War One, World War Two. So we're talking like 1920s and 30s, which is 1920s after World War. Shortly after 1920 is when you can first start seeing a massive shift. After World War One. World War Two is a separate story. After World War One is when you see that. And even though America doesn't participate in World War One, right? But that's when you start seeing this change. Because I saw pictures, I'm like, wait, when are these pictures from? They're like the 1920s. And it showed like 3 girls on a rooftop who were part of some high school club or whatever. And basically they were wearing the equivalent of, like wrestling spandex. Like just goes till here. Here. That's what they were wearing. Like
that was their undergarments. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, and someone was photographing this and this was considered normal attire, like in public. That this was considered possible normal attire. And I'm like,
for little girls, I mean, like tiny, like kids.
No, these are not young girls. This must have been teens.
In the 1920s, that's still like a lot of showing.
A lot showing. This is a 1920s photo.
Okay.
This is like one of my history books or something like that from back in the day. And that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, how far back do you have to go where kind of shame went out the window?
I'm assuming the fact you saw that photo from 1920s probably means it was actually out of the ordinary. Perhaps.
Yeah, it was out of the ordinary. This is
but definitely 1860s, man, it was pretty good. Like, it's a good time to go back to if you want to go make...
I know, but you make a good point. Like, but even if you can snap your fingers, go back to like the 40s, 50s, 60s, you're going to end up on this trajectory. You're already doing this. You're just tumbling down this hill. Yeah. And so you got to go further back or actually find out what the root cause for that is. And that is religious morality. God-given morality is what I'm talking about.
People
and the only place to get that is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and obviously Islam.
Islam. Yeah. I mean, the same thing you talked about, the one-piece bikini still being a problem, this moral incongruency with the family values. Go back to Islam, actually. Because Islam has solution for all these things. You can't even shake the other woman's hand because that's where it all starts, right? So what we need, and this is a job on us, actually, is to do our best to portray Islam as the solution, which it actually is a solution for all of society, for all of society's problems. We need to do a better job of showing our neighbors, showing the people in power in the US how Islam is a solution and talking to them about it, right? And if we don't talk about it, nobody will, right? We can't expect the Muslims in Gaza who are getting destroyed by bombs to talk to our congressman and tell him, hey, Islam is actually about peace and modesty and keeping, civil society and order and family values and all these things.
Yeah.
And if we don't do this, by the way, there's a lot of other people who are going against us. The Hindutva people, and that are going all the way to the top, from Vivek to Ramaswamy to Tulsi Gabbard and all these people. The Hindutva stuff is rising. The far-right stuff with Islamophobia against us is rising. All these forces are actively rising against us. And now, unfortunately, Elon as well is turned over to the dark side. We need to do stuff on our own.
No, so the thing is that, to me, it's like, okay, I just want to, if you ask, the Western man, and it could be anybody, I'm not even saying like white guy, I'm saying anybody who is bought into Western values, who really is not religion-based, or even if they're Christian, right? We'd like to ask them, okay, let's just say modesty. What is modest? Define modesty in terms of clothing. Define modesty in terms of clothing for men versus women. And base it on religious texts, they won't have a way of doing it. Because Mary looked like Muslim. She looked Muslim, right? In terms of how it should. And then they would say that's just cultural, right? Modesty means something else. So what does modesty mean? And they won't really have a very strong answer what modesty is, right? But they'll complain that, hey, look at the rap music and the music today. Look at even Taylor Swift, who came from, let's just say, a traditional country music, and look what she is now, right? So nothing is safe because there is no ground rules. Like, what is considered modest?
I mean, if you just look at movie ratings, right? I was looking online. Okay, I want to watch a certain show. I'm like, okay, let me look up on Reddit. What are people saying? Oh yeah, I wouldn't have this played in front of my 10-year-old, but my 11-year-old might be fine. Oh, other people are like, no, 8-year-old is fine. And completely arbitrary. Like, there's no grounding to any of this. Well, if we're talking about nudity, it's haram. Period.
Yeah.
Any age, it is haram, right? There's no clear red lines, which is why Islam just has really good.
I want to see when this changed, because PG-13 used to mean something, whatever it meant, right? But I am so surprised that PG-13 now can have sex scenes.
Oh yeah.
The PG-13 of today is the rated R of yesterday, right?
PG-13 can have I was surprised that PG-13 can have literal sex scenes, and for some reason, and that's why I completely stopped watching anything Western produced. I stick to like Korean stuff now. It's because for some reason, I don't know when this became okay, but showing the butt of a man,
Completely normal.
Yeah. It's okay. You know what it was? It was in the Mr. Bean. It was in the Mr. Bean, like something like the. I remember like this quite a bit old. It's quite old. He had some kind of cop movie, and it seemed very family friendly, kiddish, right? But for some reason, showing the butt of a man as a joke, even PG-13. This is meant for kids, by the way. 13-year-olds should be able to watch this. Completely okay.
You know the first time I realized this? Remember that movie that Shaq used to be in? Shaq and the Home Alone kid were in this movie. Anyway, this is
Shaq and the Home Alone kid?
Yeah, Shaq and the Home Alone could have a movie.
Space Jam or something?
No, where basically Shaq is the guard. He's been a guard for Home Alone kid. Is like the heir to some major thing. Anyway, he's a rich young kid, and he has his bodyguard, Shaq. And in it, the kid's unruly, so they keep going through bodyguards because no one wants to be his bodyguard. This kid, he's just such a like a annoying pest. And in one of the scenes, he's changing clothes in some mall or something. And midway, from behind the curtains, he peeks out his butt, like full blown. And this is a kids movie.
This is a kids movie, by the way, and this must be old then.
Yeah, old. Oh, I'm talking like '90s movie.
Yeah, but this when we're talking about like, oh, it used to be better back then. They're not gonna jump from that to full-on nudity in OnlyFans, right? They had to take long steps and slow progress to get to OnlyFans, where a few years ago you always read in the news when OnlyFans were getting big, like initially when it blew up. It's like, oh, kindergartner teacher makes money on the side through OnlyFans. It was so much in the news. It was crazy in the news.
Mother makes OnlyFans, and it's even weird stuff like mother and daughter make OnlyFans stuff. I'm like, holy moly, that's not something to celebrate.
But no, that.
What do you guys think about this 1,000 men in a night thing?
What?
I think it was 100.
No. So okay, here's the things. I know an unfortunate amount of detail about this. So
I've read about.
There's this girl. I'll refrain from naming it because I just feel like why keep putting her name out there? Anyway.
How do you know her name?
Huh?
I don't know your name.
I know her name. Anyway, so there's this OnlyStar fans who also acts in like in pornos and stuff like that. So she's like a porn star basically, an OnlyFans girl. She started off in OnlyFans, and what she did is this stunt where she had sex with 100 men in a single night, like over 14 hours, something like that, right? And this was a test, and afterwards she had a documentary around this as well. So this guy was doing a documentary of her doing this, and so there's like a post after she had sex with the last dude, whatever it is, to have this interview. And in it, she starts talking like, how was it? She's like, oh, like after the 30th guy, I can't remember anything. It was all just, I felt so like used basically. And she started crying. She broke down. And then she said something like, I wouldn't recommend this. You have to be like,
I wouldn't recommend this.
You have to be okay. And then, along with the release of the documentary, which shows her crying, saying this is not for the soft-hearted. I wouldn't recommend this to other women. She says, I'm going to break the world record. I'm going to sleep with 1,000 men in 24 hours. And apparently the current record is like 930 or something like that.
I'll just let everybody know.
How is this relevant?
The bikini led to this.
You guys are talking about OnlyFans. I'm just saying, this is insane.
This
It is insane.
This is insane, but
Society
it-
is
But how do you
insane.
guys not know about this? It was all over.
I
Everyone was talking
know about
I
this, and I
never came across this.
refuse to.
I never came across it.
No, it came up once.
No,
on my
no, because
feed
it
on
blew
Twitter.
up. Candace Owens is talking about this. Andrew Tate is talking about this. Everyone's tweeting about
It
this.
came up one. I'll tell you, it came up maybe once or twice in that like 2-day period, and then after that, alhamdulillah, it disappeared from my newsfeed.
I learned about this more from my wife. And then I looked into it, of course, and I'm like, this is bananas. What the frick is wrong with the world? And the fact this was publicized so much, this documentary made about this, is like, what's wrong with people? And now the same girl who was crying tears, so Candace Owens interviewed her briefly.
Ridiculous.
And somebody else's show. So
I
somebody
think
else's podcast.
that's the other problem too. This depravity should not be interviewed and put.
No, the society celebrates this kind of depravity. No, that Hawk Tuah girl. Why is she being celebrated? She talked about the most depraved, like disgusting, graphic thing that you can do.
No, it's not discussing graphic. The Hawk Tuah girl wasn't graphic at all.
What
Yeah, it
that?
was.
They're talking about the opposite team. It was a post game. Some big game happened. I don't know, it was some football game. They met this football fan outside, this girl, and they said, "What do you think about something along the lines of what do you think about the other team?" And she's like, "Two." That's it. Hawk Tuah. It's just two.
I thought it was
That's not
something
what
more
it was.
sexual. I
Did you
think
see
it's
the
more-
video?
Yeah.
No, it was more like, oh, what
Something
can
sexual,
you...
yeah.
Yeah, it was clearly
It was sexual.
dude.
It
Yeah.
wasn't sexual.
It was 100% sexual.
okay.
Yes, it was, dude.
It was
Okay.
sexual. But
That's why she
but
became
the thing
viral.
is, the thing is, this is the problem. This is what's happening, right? Everything is becoming sexualized. We're getting to this point because of all the steps society is taking to get here. And again, that's why like as you were saying, Islam has a solution.
And it has its own role models. We don't need to have Hawk Tuah
It-
lady as a role model.
To make matters
100
worse,
people in a
You're
day.
wondering, why did this come up to me? Because when you said mother and daughter, or guess who her manager is? Her mom.
Ridiculous.
Her mom manages the finances of all this.
But that's the thing. You see, you, by
That's
the way...
what's worse. It's
one
worse.
second. You are somebody who is, I would consider, mashallah, a very good Muslim relative to a lot of other people I've seen, okay? And
They'll-
you come
they'll
across this...
accept.
They'll accept. But this is what you've come across on the fringe. There's a... You're like the very edge of the bell curve, probably. There's a large number of people who consume this stuff a lot, right? And their kids see this stuff in their house. And like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Let me try doing this when I grow up. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, she's going to do 1,000 now? The role models are
absolute
so
insane.
screwed.
It's
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting to
By the
watch.
way, this is again the news media and pushing this stuff. I remember when this OnlyFans started, they on some news articles they were showing it as the parents were kind of like disgusted by the fact that their kindergarten teachers could be on OnlyFans as well on the side, which is absolute nut. Like people are worried that, oh, then how do I figure out if my kid's kindergarten teacher is actually doing OnlyFans on the side, right? But the news articles were protecting them, these teachers, saying that the actual problem is not the fact that they're doing OnlyFans, okay? It's teachers' pay is bad, and they're forced to do OnlyFans.
At least that's better than, oh, it's because the men watch it.
No, but this is just depravity, right? This is absolute
Why are kids
depravity.
allowed on OnlyFans? How could anyone even find out?
Yeah, I mean,
that
they
would be the
protect
big
this stuff. It's
And no, but
ridiculous.
I always find out something of these like what do you call it? These sayings. Like every culture has sayings. What do they call them?
Proverbs.
Proverbs, right? Some of the proverbs that you hear in the U.S. That is like constantly told 1,000 times is this idea is sex work is
the oldest profession.
First of all, yes, sex work is the oldest profession.
Prostitution is the oldest profession.
Is the oldest profession. And as if it's a noble thing, right? It's the oldest profession, therefore it's noble or something. And then the other thing is sex work is work or something.
What are they called? The nurses who just do deliveries?
Midwives.
Midwives. They say that's the oldest profession, followed by prostitution.
Yeah, but as if just because it's the old profession, they're
You heard
trying
it first?
they're trying to like promote it, right? But it's these things that are just circulating society and making society it's okay, it's acceptable, right? This is a valid profession, right? I am providing a service. It's absolute nonsense.
This is a recent thing. I'm just providing a service. My fans. But by the way, imagine there's 1,000 guys who are signing up and being vetted to have sex with this girl. But see that's further.
I just don't even care about this topic.
Let's just move on.
But I'm just saying, like, but you know how we talked about this a while ago, not on the podcast, but it was like, It only takes. This is why I'm not going to open this can of.
Don't.
I'll leave it. I'll leave it.
Good. To me, this
But-
is so disgusting that I just don't even want to
It
talk
is.
about
It is. No. But the other topic, it requires some prefacing this whole
No,
thing in Islam.
let's-
But I'm not going to. We'll skip over this. It is disgusting. Candace Owen said as much. She's like, "This is disgusting. What the frick?" Anyway, in other news, if you guys would like, I think we're about an hour and 10 minutes in. A lot's happened in the chess world, especially towards the end of last year.
I've actually
We can
watched quite a
talk
bit
about
too of it, but yeah, I'm always interested in chess news sometimes.
this. You down to hear?
Nope.
No?
But sure, go ahead, talk about it.
Okay, so I'll give a little preface. So, chess, old ancient game. There's been a chess world champion for the past, 150, 60 years, something like that. I think the first chess champion was around 1800 or so, whatever it is. And so...
Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, we'll get there. So currently, the last...
You went 1800s, Magnus Carlsen.
No.
He's a very recent
The last
Let me preface
many
things.
years
This is
he's
how
been-
chess works. People don't know how chess world works at all. It's a real competition, like a real sport. There've been a world chess champion for a long time coming. And the whole ELO thing, everyone hears about ELO. Oh, what's the sports ELO? What's ELO in this game or this competition, right? That comes from chess. So ELO was created for chess, where you can rate and rank chess players according to the ELO. You win a game, you get a certain amount of points depending on the, how strong the opponent was, and so on and so forth, right? And so that's how the chess world works. And now, the traditional chess you think of, or the world champion in chess, has been of the classical chess format. Classical chess is several hours on the board. It's at least 60 minutes or more. Okay? Usually, for example, the World Chess Championship that happened a couple months ago, it was, I think, like 2 hours followed by an hour. So once you hit the 2 hour mark or certain move mark, you get an additional hour. And then after that, you get an increment per move. Every time you make a move, you get 30 seconds, something like that. Right? Which means you can be on the board for up to anywhere between 4 to 8 hours playing a single match. So that's classical chess.
You're talking about Blitz now, right?
No. We'll get there. So that's classical chess. And then there is rapid chess, which is usually, you can say, less than 30 minutes is usually classical chess. So, or rapid chess, you say 20 and 15 minutes, 10 minutes is a more common time controls for rapid. And then there's blitz chess, which is usually less than 10 minutes. I would say most common formats are 5 or 3 minute chess. And when I say 5 and 3 minutes, it's per side. So I get 5 minutes to make my moves. Once I hit the clock, your clock starts running down, and you get 5 minutes. So if 2 people get 5 minutes, it's up to a 10-minute game. If there's increment, increment means you get an additional bonus time per move. So if on the first move I have 5 minutes when I start the game and I make a move and it's 1 second increment, I probably get 5 minutes, 1 second after the first move. Anyway, so that's that. And the last one you can say is bullet chess. Bullet chess is usually something less than 3 minutes. More often it's 1 or 2 minute chess per side. It's really, really rapid movements. And usually that's played online because you can't move physical pieces nearly as fast as you can with a mouse clicking around. So anyway, so that's the basic premise of how chess works. Classical, there's always a classical world champion, always considered the best. It has classically been the world's best player, number one player, has been the world champion. And most recently, that was Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen, he's a Norwegian chess player. He's exactly my age, 33, 34 years old. And
What have you achieved? Okay.
compared to that,
Talking about the news.
I guess I have a doctorate, but besides that, I don't have much else to say. But yeah, so he was, you could say, the last real world champion. Now, and this is where the drama comes in. What does this mean? So Magnus Carlsen became the world champion, I think, like in 2012-ish. Don't hold me to this, right? And then he won it 5 times. So the world championship is a 2-year cycle. The world championship is held every 2 years. He was a world champion for about 10 years. He won 5 times. Okay. After his 5th win, there was rumors that he's not going to defend his title next time. He's like, look, I'm the best. Not only is he the best at classical chess, he's the best in rapid and blitz as well, which is a separate world championship for. He's won the classical world championship 5 times. He's won the world blitz 8 times, and he's won the rapid like 5 times. Okay. This guy, he was most recently FIDE, which is the world governing body of chess. FIDE had their 100th anniversary this past year in 2024, I should say. And they gave him the GOAT trophy. It was between him and another player named Garry Kasparov, a Russian player who retired around the turn of the millennium, around 2005 or so. I think he retired. But he was in line because he was like the number 1 player forever. And then there was Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen because this guy is the best in every format. Okay. Anyway, long story short, he decided not to defend his title.
This last time, right?
And not this last time. Last time.
Last time.
Last time.
Gary Kasparov decided not to
No.
defend his
Magnus
title.
Carlsen decided not to defend his title, the World Championship title. So then the number 2 and number 3 players. So the way it works is the candidate cycle. Basically, the top 10 players in the world classical, they compete. And the winner of that plays against the world champion. That's the way it's always been. But because he didn't, now the top 2 players from this candidates tournament played against each other, which was Jan Nepomniachtchi, another Russian guy, and Ding Liren, this guy from China. They played against each other. Ding Liren won. Yeah. Okay. It's worth noting that Jan Nepomniachtchi was also the person who played Magnus Carlsen last. Magnus Carlsen's 5th defense, or 4th defense, you could say, his 5th World Championship game was against Jan Nepomniachtchi. He whooped him, basically, right? And then Ding Liren comes and beats Jan again. So Jan's been in 2 World Championships, he lost both. Ding won. As soon as Ding won the World Championship, now this is where all the drama is. Ding won the World Championship, and everyone's like, he's not a real World Champion anyway. Everyone knows, Magnus Carlsen was the real World Champion. He should have played the fight, he didn't, so I guess you're the number 2 player in the world at best. After that moment, he won the World Championship, Ding Liren, this Chinese player, and then he proceeded to play terribly for the next 2 years. Terribly. I wouldn't say 2 because COVID kind of messed up the cycle. So the Canada's tournament and the World Championship happened last year, same time. But anyway, so he played, just lost pretty much. I don't think he didn't win a single game. I think he won 1 game across the whole year. Barely played any tournaments. His health was bad, just doing poorly. And then he just defended his title against this young 18-year-old named Gukesh Dommaraju, who won the Canada's earlier this year, and Gukesh beat Ding in the 14th and final game of the tournament. Gukesh blundered, Ding blundered the last second. Gukesh became the youngest world champion at 18 years old. But again,
The world champion of classical chess?
Of classical chess. And then, Gary Kasparov, who was a classical, he was the world champion for 20, 30 years or something. He is you guys know my opinion on this. He is not, the last real world champion was Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Anyway, so there's the asterisk next to all that. Even Gukesh, when he won, they're like, what do you think? He's like, well, we all know that who the best player is, and I hope to compete against him and prove that I am the world champion, as time goes by.
Gukesh said this.
Gukesh said this. We all know.
Gukesh is what?
He's an 18-year-old Indian kid.
Gotcha.
He's now the world champion because he's technically, he holds the title. He's not the best player in chess. That's still Magnus. All right. That all happened, bunch of drama there.
India and Russia have pretty good chess players. I think Russia a bit more so.
Russia was classically the best forever, by the way, until Bobby Fischer came along from America and he whooped pretty much Karpov and all the chess players at the time, or Spassky, not Karpov, Spassky and stuff at the time.
But India's coming up quite a bit.
India's the new powerhouse. Yeah. It's not even close. The next generation of top players, 5 of the 8 players, whatever.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah. There's I can name them. But there's Arjun Erigaisi. There's Arjun Erigaisi.
But there's an Uzbeki guy too.
Yeah, there's Noderbek Abdulsatarov. Someone's opening the door.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Nee, had de record kunnen bouwen. Slowly opening the door.
Anyways,
there's Uzbekistan's actually really strong. America's strong. Russia's strong, and I would say China. So I would say the top powerhouse in the world: China, India by far now. India's the future. U.S. is the current strongest by average rating of the top players, followed by I would say India currently, and then it would be probably China and Russia.
So you said, sorry, go back to Gukesh winning, and he's not the real champion.
He's not the real champion. Now that's one of the whole series of things, right?
That was the last couple of years, right?
No, that's last year. Gukesh became world champion in October or something, right? November. All right, now this brings us to and they'll end. So right after Christmas, pretty much, I think around the 25th, they started the World Blitz and Classical Championship, the World Blitz and Rapid Championships. The Rapid happens first, which is it was I think a 10-minute or 15-minute time control, and then the Blitz happens later, which was 3 minutes. Okay. Usually they do them together because the same players would tend to be good in one format tend to be good at the other two, and so they have them usually together. So it's 3 days for the Rapid. You play 5 games, 15 games total. It's like a round robin tournament. The person with the highest points at the end wins out of 160 participants. And then you have the Blitz, which was Blitz had a knockout format for the first time. We'll get into that. This is hence the drama. So Magnus Carlsen, there's some drama before this I'll get into why it's important. But
a lot of drama.
There's a lot of drama. Tons of drama in chess. By the way, there's several chess cheating scandals that happen along the way. Huge ones. But chess boomed during COVID. It should be worth noting.
Yeah, it became
especially
huge.
the shorter time controls.
Chess.com.
Classical chess is no longer the biggest time control. It is. That probably still has the most money in it. But as far as viewership, it's these faster time controls where you can see people move and commentators are like, "Oh my God, he blundered," and it's a lot more exciting, right? You see people move rapidly
like
versus
T20.
waiting 30 minutes for a single move, right?
It's like T20 chess versus test.
Yeah, it's like T20 cricket.
T20 cricket
Yeah,
versus
100%.
test cricket.
T20 is way more exciting than watching a test match. Coffee break, right? Doesn't work that way. Tea time, whatever it is, chai time. And so Magnus Carlsen's playing this tournament. On the second day of the rapid tournament, after the second round, the arbiter comes to him and says, "You're not following the dress code." He's wearing jeans. He's wearing a nice coat, a crisp white, like proper dress shirt. He's wearing like dress loafers, and he's got jeans on, like blue jeans. And they're like, jeans, the arbiter tells him, jeans are generally not allowed. We would ask you to change. You don't have to change immediately. You can change after the next round, but you'd have to change. He's like, look, I mean, slight oversight. I was in a rush when I came, so I quickly changed my shirt, my shoes. I didn't even think about the jeans being an issue. I still look quite professional. Magnus Carlsen, the world number one. He has a lot of clout too. He's a big guy. I mean, he's the one who has the most number. If he's in a tournament, people watch it. If he's not in a tournament, much less viewership, just naturally. And so he's like, look, now it's a matter of principle. I'll change after today's tournament. I'll change before the third day of the tournament tomorrow. But let me finish the remainder of my games today. And they said, no, we had to be fair. We have had other people change as well. You have to change before the third game, or we won't pair you. Basically, we won't allow you to play the third game. Or the fourth or the fifth after that until you change. He's like, well, I guess that's it. I'm not playing this tournament. And you know what?
Arrogant to me.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So now we
You know,
get
the thing
to...
is, he has expressed, again, he stopped playing the championship. He's expressed that like he's beat everybody so much that he does it because he enjoys it, not because he needs to.
He doesn't need this team. He doesn't need the money. By the way, he sold his Play Magnus company for like 30 million or something earlier, like last year.
He doesn't need it.
Also, just his winnings from world championships was like $5-6 million, $7 million. So he has money. Money's not an issue for him. He's won everything. He got the GOAT trophy of the best player of the last century. I mean,
He's done.
He's done it all. He's literally won every tournament. Every major tournament, he's won it at least once.
He just enjoys the game a lot.
Yeah.
So he keeps playing.
So he's like, I don't need this. He literally, so then he goes on an interview couch.
Yeah, I saw that.
Gotham Chess, he is he's the foremost YouTuber for chess content. And he's there on the couch interviewing players.
Hikaru's pretty good too.
Hikaru's more a streamer. He's a YouTuber, but he just posts his things to YouTube. And then, Magnus comes. He interviews Magnus. Magnus is like, he's like, so wait, man, I just heard they kicked you out of the tournament? He says, look, they wanted me to change. They fined me for the dress code. And I told them I would change before the next day tomorrow. They insisted I change today. At that point, it became a matter of principle to me. So I said no. He says, look, I've had problems with FIDE already. I was tired of this. And you know what? And he ends the interview with this, long story short, he goes, F you.
That's how he ends
And he just walks off the interview. Okay?
Not to the interviewer, but to
Not the interviewer. He says F you to FIDE. Like, FIDE, F you. I don't need this. Like, you need me, I don't need you type thing. And he walks off, okay? This happens. And then like Gotham's like, you're not going to even play the Blitz? Like, fine, you got kicked out of the Rapid tournament. At least play the Blitz. Right? And because, by the way, he is the world, he gave up his classical champion. He was the reigning world Rapid and Blitz champion. He won them both in 2023. So in 2024, you got to defend your title. You pieced out. Somebody else won the Rapid. There was talks between him and the FIDE president named Arkady Joke, something like that. He speaks to him, and then he comes back for another interview. In the break day, there's a break day. There's one break day between the Rapid and the Blitz championship. And he comes in on the sofa. He's like, yeah, there's a change of plan. I'm going to stay after all. I was going to go to someplace, because it's staying place in New York where it's like super cold. He's like, I was going to put someplace warmer with my girlfriend, but my father convinced me to stay.
I think he's married now.
He's married now, so I guess it was his fiance at the time.
He just got married too.
Yeah.
Right now.
And so he's like, yeah, I was going to go play someplace warmer, but my dad told me to wait one more day. So the president of FIDE was actually, he was sick, so he didn't come to New York for the event. And he lived somewhere in Europe, and so he was sleeping, just time zone-wise, when all this fiasco occurred with his dress code situation. But when he finally was able to speak to him, he's like, look, Magnus, we'll change the dress code. We'll allow jeans, basically. we'll loosen the dress code to more business cash, and please play the blitz. Something along those lines. They agreed. So Magnus stayed. He said, now on principle, I'm going to be wearing jeans for the remainder of the blitz tournament. For sure. That's happening. And I mean, people are like, look, what else is going on? Now there's some background. Like, he wouldn't just blow up over this, although it's very possible he could. He could be like, well, screw you guys, I don't want to change my jeans. But recently,
There's another organization.
there is another organization called Freestyle Chess. So these are the 4 major time controls of chess, so I told you. Fast, slow, faster, faster, faster. But there's another form of chess, another variant of chess that there's also a world championship for, called Fischer Random or Chess 960 are the 2 main names for it. And what this is Bobby Fischer, the world champion, from like the 70s or whatever. He
wanted to change the meta.
Basically, yeah, he says, so I'm going to give some technicality, but I find this stuff super fascinating.
You're good.
No. The laptop died.
Do you think they're recording that?
Yeah.
Of course.
I'll finish this part.
Oh, it's recording right here.
It's recording here. I'll put this in. Sorry, guys. I thought I had enough battery on this. Whoopsie. Anyway, but we'll just use the camera audio for the end part.
It died on the chess part.
Yeah. Whatever.
Although, I find this great too. I love the chess content. The drama on chess is pretty great.
It's great. So now, I even dimmed midway through. I dimmed the screen, so it lasted a bit longer. There's 40% left when you had like 15 minutes.
Those laptops die pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's old now. Anyway, so there's there's Fischer Random. That's what I was talking about. So Fischer Random is, so in chess there's a pawns row and there's a back row of chess pieces, right? In the back row of chess pieces, there's this particular style of places, the rook and then the knight, the bishop, and so on and so forth, right? In Fischer Random, you randomize those pieces.
Again, he literally wanted to change the meta.
Yeah. So in the reason
Randomize the back row?
Yeah.
And
every game is randomized back row?
Completely.
By the way, the reason he made this new format, he's still alive, right, Bobby Fischer? No, he's just
he passed away
pretty recently.
Yeah,
like relatively
10 years ago.
Yeah. And the reason he wanted to change the format, and he called it Chess 2.0 essentially, Fischer Random Chess 2.0, is because he felt he was so good beyond everybody else, it became boring for him. So he wanted to change the meta.
No, but the real reason, especially nowadays, why Chess 960 is called more commonly, or Fischer Random, or Freestyle Chess he calls it now, and I'll tell you why, but it's because computers, computers are so good at the game, by the way. They're better than any human by far. They beat humans in like 2004, and now it's not even close.
Like Stockfish.
Stockfish is insane, right? So ELO-wise, Stockfish is like 3,800, while Magnus Carlsen, the best player in the world, his highest ELO was like 2,886 or something like that. Okay, so like 1,000 ELO better, right? So the early game, the open, there's a particular set of moves you can make in the beginning of the game to get a good set, basically. All the best players in the world,
Memorized.
It's memorized. Basically, when I play this, you play this. When I play this, you play this. And if you don't play this, you're automatically worse. You come out of the opening phase of the game. There's the opening, there's the mid game, there's the end game. There's 3 phases of chess. The opening is just memorized. Everyone has memorized it. And so basically, you know what they do in this world championship? How do they do the prep for classical chess? You know what? In this line, after the 4th, 5th move, we're going to do the standard opening. And then you know what? We're going to do the second best engine move. We're not going to do what Stockfish recommends as first line best move. We'll do the second best move. And the reason that's important is because now the other player has to react accordingly. If you now play the second best move, he cannot play the standard best move. Because that would be the best move if you play your best move. But now that you played the second move, he has to play the best move for the second best move. Anyway, it's a bunch of memorization. It's very lame. And people are like, it's just, the prep is so intense. To draw a game is easy.
But that's why they like Blitz as well. In Blitz, if you see the player who's winning at that court position, it sometimes changes wildly. And I saw like Magnus's game against who would be
Elon?
Yeah. If you see it, there was a time that the other guy was like winning, right? Initially, because he was white, he was winning, and he blundered. He went down. But Magnus also, for one of the games, he blundered. Like major blunder, it completely changed the thing. But because the game is moving so fast, because you might not have much time left, you could actually get blunders from these GMs. When normally you would never. If you give them all the time in the world, they would just
because
play
it's so fast you get the blunders.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't have time to think of it through.
Which makes it way more interesting, actually.
And so this is where Magnus shines.
I gotta get going. So it's great. You guys continue. Yeah.
Okay. But it has the most, what do you call it? It has the most intuition for the game. So the players who are better at the blitz and rapid portions are generally who have better intuition, because in classical chess you can sit there and calculate. You can sit there, you can spend 10, 15 minutes on a single move, calculate all the variations, possibilities, and make your move. In blitz and rapid, you just have to have a strong intuitive sense, like, that doesn't look right. If I make that move, it doesn't look right. I feel like that's a worse position.
Yeah.
This looks better. It feels better. And you have this, of course, they do quick 1, 2, 3 move tactics and calculate it on the fly because they're just so good. But it's just all about intuition. And they say Magnus Carlsen has the best intuition of the game, full stop here.
So continue with the blitz, because I know what takes place.